Hello everyone and welcome back to Cosmic Voice. Tonight the return of the triumvirate at last, Drake, Tanaath and Sunfire. And we hope you all enjoyed the show this evening, and I'll hand you over to Drake first.
Okay. Some of the things that have been going on lately have been interesting. As everybody knows, that there was a change of venue, and then out of a supposedly closed account came a closing address from the Universal Voice people, namely Grammy J and Denise. I'd like to note that I've listened to it several times, and would like to ask a simple question as to, you say that I have violated your trust, and that's Grammy and Denise agreeing on that. How about violation of my trust? How about the leaking of confidential information? Outed in anger. I have no doubt that people have the capability of turning things around any way they want, but I hate to inform everybody, but when I shoot at a squirrel because it's taking all the fruit off of my trees, I don't care who's on the phone. Doesn't matter what's going on. I don't shoot in that manner without having a target, a reason for doing so. Shooting my gun off in anger don't happen, ever. Found out that my sights were off because I dropped the gun on a concrete floor. Fixed the sights, and so far I'm beginning to win. Squirrels beginning to give up, which is a good sign. At least I'll have some apples instead of having them all on the ground rotting. And no, it's not a case where the squirrel's hungry. When the squirrel is hungry, it takes maybe one, possibly two, and gets down and eats them, or takes them off to be put in a vault. This dude is running around just cutting fruit and dropping it, just like one that was in our peach tree, which now has maybe a half a dozen peaches left out of a pretty full tree. I don't particularly appreciate that. The squirrel can either quit it or I'll shoot it. Don't matter to me which. But as far as shooting my gun off in anger, no. One of the other things was the intimation, the inference, the big hint that I said I was God or some such. That is also about as far off as shooting at a squirrel that's screwing up my crop of apples. But then we got this thing with grays. Ooh, evil entities being sent. And then being, again, insinuated that I sent them. That, first of all, can't happen. I use grays for target practice, as I've stipulated on several occasions. I noticed that the Universal Voice on Blog Talk has room for comments, and there was comments, some 40 of them on there the other day, mysteriously got erased. Some of the things that were noted on there apparently didn't jive with the lies being told. And yeah, I got witnesses. My wife was with me on several occasions and listened to conversations that I've had with both parties concerned in this so-called closing. One of the problems being that on several occasions I have expressed that I got enough money to pay for the account. I proved that to Blog Talk by signing up another account that you're listening to now. And the offer was made on several occasions to do so, contrary to what's stated in that close. The bad guy, that I'm some kind of evil, sent my buddies the Greys, is about as far from the truth as it gets. And it's really not appreciated. You talk violation of trust. You talk about, oh, that's real good, thanks for service. Well, what about my trust over the period of time? Allowing people to have a hand right on the heartbeat of what's going on and then slap that in my face? Thanks a lot. First of all, I can't send grays because I shoot them before they get that far. But I'm not arguing or belittling the point that the possibility was there that they were sent. What did it say? Supposedly they keep the show on. Well, really? Well, it scared the Pete Diddlins out of the two females involved in this particular close, and stipulated quite unequivocally that you will keep the show on. And yet, do you really think that the enemies of freedom, that the enemies of my associates want to keep the shows on, that they want to have the truth out? What happened? The show got canceled. We can't trust you. Really? Well, who can you trust? Who is it you've been listening to that has given you the supposed new insight that is so grandiose? Have you fallen under the control or influence of the bad guys yourselves, are questions that come to my mind, irrespective. But the grays were not sent by me first. Number two, as I said, I use them for target practice. That's about what they're good for. There is an extermination order on them by all of the good guys. Kill on sight, basically. That'll tell you what they're good for. As I said, target practice. I did not want to address this, I'm going to be honest with you. And the reason I didn't want to address this, I was hoping it would go away. Apparently, there's some people out there that think that any controversy, never let a perfectly good crisis go to waste. Let's sink our claws in. Let's see what we can find out. Well, the people that can't find anything better to do with their time and attention than playing games need to go somewhere and play with themselves. But quite frankly, most of the people that do know what's going on ain't interested in that. They would like to have a little bit more information on what's coming. They'd like to have a little more information about the relatives. Yeah, right, man, that's cool. Relatives from upstairs, out and beyond, that they're about to meet. They would like to understand what's going to transpire. What are these guys coming for? If they're so superior, well, you got to understand this, and I've laid this out once before, and I'll lay it out again real simply, real quickly. The United States is keystone to the planet Earth in terms of freedom. That's why the battle is heavy, and you don't see it yet. It's coming. It's very close, and yeah, it's things are going on. I can't help people who don't know how to look, but there is a large load of things that are happening and taking place that people are beginning to realize do have something to do with what I've been talking about. First of all, our country is keystone to the planet. What does that mean? Well, if you want to be free on this planet and you don't give the bad guys the opportunity to seize control or take the power, then you have wrestled away from them the capability of controlling you, putting you in FEMA camps and all this other happy stuff that's been thoroughly discussed, or just forming a huge battlefield, setting off everybody's nukes and hiding underground. That was part of the plan at one time. Let's take this a step further. Earth is just as keystone as America to this, just as America is keystone to this planet. Earth is keystone to the galaxy. Our galaxy is also keystone to our universe. Now, I have not elucidated to the fact, but I can tell you right now, yeah, we ain't alone. Anybody who listens to this show and pays attention knows this. Second part of this goes to the fact that there are hundreds of millions of worlds involved who are bumping along, doing the best they can, and actually some of them doing a pretty good job of maintaining freedom as well as organization upon their planets. Now, let's take it back downstairs again, right to the backyard. Those people also understand what ET's coming for. What are they coming for? Well, it ain't to harvest us, I can tell you that. I know these ETs. I have vetted them on a psychic basis where you cannot lie. Now, think about that very closely. You can't lie under these circumstances, period. Don't work. Why? Because you share thoughts. You have to open your mind, and you have to share thoughts. That's exactly how that works. Now, taking it as far as it can go, anything that is not correct pops up as a big old red zit in the middle of the thought process and says, hey, look at me, man, I ain't right. Well, these thoughts are real simple, I don't much like or care for you, so I'm going to wait till you ain't watching and I'm going to get you. That sort of stuff. All these bump in the dark, things that live under the bed that everybody's afraid of. Well, that ain't E.T. Here's what E.T.'s doing. They're fighting off the bad guys upstairs. I'm gonna break it down. They're fighting off the bad guys upstairs. What little is left of them. Most of the ones that got any common sense and observation at all are actually surrendering. Sorry about that, guys, but things happen and whatever. Many are finding that we are easy and reasonable to deal with, to the extent that they have had no repercussions within whatever organization or group or society they have, other than to become our allies. Yeah, we would like to have that. Well, you do it like this and it works. Oh, really? Okay. The ETs are here to set the planet free, to make sure that the so-called gods, and we still got a few dinks running around on this planet that feel that they are God, and they can make the call, and they can destroy the universe, and they can kill us all, and all this other happy stuff. We still got a few nutcases like that loose, junior Hitlers or whatever you want to call them, that have nothing more in mind than to subjugate and enslave each and every last one of us. I don't need to name names of groups and organizations and races and whatnot in order to get the thought across. I'm getting that across just as simple as it is. So, E.T., the people that I deal with, the entities that I deal with, the races that I deal with, were outed in such a manner that there's no room, no wiggle room, no little bit of fudge here and there where they can get around something. So, what I look at is realities. Now, Jack Pruitt, The Grand Deception, stipulates that there's no white knight coming and E.T. ain't going to save us and all this happy stuff, and he's right. The E.T. plan doesn't have any thing like that in it. Neither does the governmental reset that is to be facilitated and assisted here on the planet by our own very own military. They're not coming in. They're not riding in on a white horse to save our butts from our own stupid selves. They're riding in here to eliminate a problem that was overwhelming to even the population of America, to the extent that we can actually make our decisions and do so under the freedom of will of our personal decision. Do we want to be free? Yeah, there's some rules. In other words, one race does not have the right to take another one captive, enslave, etc. One planet also does not have the right to do this to either another race and or another planet. It's real simple rules. Doing to others as you'd have them doing to you. You want to be a slave? No. Then you don't do it to anybody else. It's not difficult. That's why I stipulate the golden rule. It is applicable. So, my summation is simple. Most of what's in there, including the crocodile tears and other happy horse hockey that was displayed so loving and tenderly, and oh, my heart's broke and all this happy stuff, don't cut it with me. I'm gonna bring it back to the brass tacks. I trusted Grammy J. She was one of my most trusted associates. She had a whole lot of inside information and understanding that almost nobody else had. Why? She asked. If I could tell her, I did. Why? We was friends, and I mean buddies. How she got off on this tangent and all of a sudden I'm some kind of evil thingamabob from the pit of hell, I got no idea. I would suggest that there is an influence there. And I would suggest Grammy J and Denise both wake up to the fact that they may have been played, much to the surprise of a lot, and much to the, I don't know, I can't say that it's their fault, but when you got something that don't sound quite right, you dose it with salt and look at it, and you figure it, and you go, how does that figure into this? Does that go anywhere other than where we were supposed to be going in the first place? Little simple questions that you ask along the road. So we reinitiated the program, Cosmic Voice. There were a lot of things that went into the decisions made. So I hope everybody can get a better understanding as to what I've just stated and how I've stated it, and understand that there are facts involved that don't go along with the storyline. Whether somebody else is directing that storyline, I'm not sure of. Whether or not we can repair this in terms of saying, okay, Grammy, Denise, you made your decision. Why is it you're still jumping up and down harping about it? If you divorced me, why are you still jumping up and down harping about it? Didn't you get the divorce settlement that you wanted? Or is the person that's trying to direct you maybe didn't get what they wanted? To shut me up, to not have the truth out there. Yeah, there's questions I got. And I have several candidates in mind that probably were a part of what the decisions that were made. So from that, I believe Taff has something she would like to say about some of this. And hopefully I wasn't ahead of it.
I do. I actually have a few somethings I wish to say about this. First of all, Grammy and Denise are people who I care about and love quite a bit. So when we go into this, remember that I had just as much caring, love, and emotionality invested in this as they did. From my observations, what happened was at some point a decision was made to break with us. And then rationale to support that decision was scraped up or manufactured outright in order to justify that break. I saw things that did not make sense. I saw a lot of drama, a lot of blaming, a lot of finger-pointing, and a lot of stuff that was, to my eyes, quite deliberately misinterpreted in the most hostile and damaging fashion in order to support this notion of childishness, of immaturity, of darkness. And to me, it was very hurtful. I don't know what exactly happened. I would like to think for Grammy J and Denise's sake that this is the result of some kind of tampering or otherwise. But at the same time, my trust was also broken. I saw Sunfire blamed for things that she did not do. I saw people accusing her of doing things and making statements that she did not do and did not say. She was used as a scapegoat for a lot of this. And I also saw accusations that, well, I wasn't exerting enough control. I wasn't being the commander of everyone. I didn't set out to be the leader. I didn't set out to be controlling. That is very, very anathema to me. Consider this. The Silver Legion, while we have officers and we have a command structure, it is not rulership. We are essentially anarchic. And I go back to the Greek in that usage. A meaning without, archos or archon, ruler. No rulers. I didn't feel that it was my place to rule in any of the Skype groups that we used as working groups. I didn't feel it was my place to exert control over the universal voice, even if I didn't always agree with how they did their methods. I did find that their comment policy was over-rigorous, although I defended them in that because this was their space and they had to police it as they saw fit. I never tried to interfere or influence in the workings of the universal voice in any way. And for this, I've been accused of being negligent. Reply with me. Another thing, it has been made very much of the fact that Denise has been working long hours and put a lot of energy into this. I don't dispute that fact. What goes unsaid is the fact that the rest of us are also working long hours and putting immense amounts of energy and effort into this endeavor. And I don't mean a radio show. I have had friends attacked. I've had assassination attempts, sabotage on my vehicle. I've lost a job. I'm by no means the only one in the working group that has undergone these things. I've seen friends nearly killed by energetic attacks. And yet I have continued to work both in my waking hours and my sleeping hours. Not always without complaint. I can confess to that. Sometimes I do shake my fist at the sky and say, why is this so much harder than it has to be? But I still keep doing it. And yes, I work long hours for very little acknowledgement while being ridiculed and targeted. But I still do this because I believe that I need to do my best. I believe that this is my mission, that this is my duty. This is what I was born for and the reason why I exist on this planet. And if I'm wrong about who and what I am, then at least I'll have been wrong honestly while doing my best. I don't know if I can say the same about everybody else involved in this, if you can call it an industry or movement or whatever. But I know that I and the people that I work with are honestly doing their best. If we happen to be mistaken, then it's an honest mistake. Sunfire?
Yeah, I just want to say, as a person blamed for a lot of things, it really made the scapegoat by a couple of people I really loved and trusted, and I'm sorry that it had to come to this because we all, like we said, we all put a lot of hard work in and a lot of long hours, and we put up with a lot of attacks and assassination attempts and everything else. But we're doing this for what we believe in, and to help the people and help the population. And so I also wanted to address the multiple questions I was made aware of concerning Nibiru, Nemesis, Planet X, Brown Dwarf Star. The questions, I know they come up a lot, and to cover them all, there is no brown dwarf, mini solar system, or Planet X. They are all much like Nibiru myths or fear porn, most of it propagated by the Cabal for the purpose of fear porn. Sitchin was hired by the Cabal to write the whole Anunnaki Nibiru story as a psyop. Nibiru never existed as a planet ever. Good things to check out would be a website called www.sitchiniswrong.com. It fully debunks Sitchin and does it from the scholastic point of view with literal translations of the tablets that were found in Sumer. And the other one I want to recommend is written by a shaman. It's an article titled Anunnaki and the Fear of the Boogeyman. It also points out multiple other scholaristic sites that provide true, accurate interpretations of the tablets found in Sumer. As for the latest from a NASA whistleblower, think about it. NASA lies about the moon. They lie about Mars. They lie about space program. They lie about our sun. What, for one moment, makes you think they are therefore lying about a non-existent mini solar system, and especially one that is supposedly going to cause widespread mass destruction in less than about 10 days? Galactic Federation of Planets assures me that there will be no mass casualty or catastrophic events, and that the transition will pass with relative smoothness. All those people that are seeing these second suns, etc., that people, are going, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Those are the 25-plus biospheres we've talked about multiple times, and Otolok has talked about these, that the Andromeda Council, the Federation, and our allies are using. They all belong to positives. They aren't going to harm our planet or get too close, because much like these other things, Planet X and Nibiru, et cetera, that, are being propagated to exist but don't, they would cause a huge amount of seismic activity because of the gravitational pull of them. So they're not going to be anywhere near Terra. Think about it, guys. If there is a rogue planet, brown dwarf, Planet X, or mini solar system close enough to where it would be passing the planet between the 16th and 26th, then why are not amateur astronomers around the world saying anything about this? They would see it and be talking about it worldwide. So would the Chinese government, the Russian government, the UK, all these other governments that have these giant telescopes, they would be saying something. The only ones that are saying things is NASA and a bunch of fear porn sites, most of which have been ran by the government. What purpose does this serve other than their agenda and trying to get the population to manufacture that reality and stay in a state of fear and not love where they need to be right now? We are winning. We are manufacturing huge amounts of positive energy, and the cabal is freaking out. They know they've lost. They're scared. They just can't accept it. Don't let them keep you or your friends or your family and loved ones in a state of fear. Move into and stay in a state of love. Be the anchor for the energy, and something to keep in mind. And the bad guys know this. They're trying to continue to use these in your free will against you. So I want you guys to know this too. Where focus goes, energy follows. And related to that is the saying that goes, what you focus on most will manifest itself. Along with that, as I mentioned last week, time, space, and thought are not the separate things they appear to be, and thought is the basis of all reality. And there's a couple more to add to that, is the energy of thought is extremely powerful, and thought directs matter. So instead of letting the bad guys use those against you, take back your own power, step into it, and wield it wisely.
We've never made any disguises about the fact that we are very much mortal, very much Terran as well as ET, and very much fallible. And even that ETs are fallible. The only people who are putting out the notion that ETs and all associated with them are these divine, infallible beings that are incapable of making mistakes, errors, or anything like that, are the ones who are trying to tell you that they're your gods and that you should obey them and that you should be their slaves and do whatever they tell you. It's simply not the case. Nobody is infallible. Everyone is capable of making mistakes. We don't tell you to believe everything we say. We tell you to use your discernment. Find out for yourself what you believe. Take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. Yes, we're capable of making mistakes. Yes, we're capable of making judgments of error. Yes, we're capable of having bad days, bad weeks, and even bad months. This does not invalidate everything we say. This doesn't invalidate our mission, nor does it invalidate what we're attempting to do here. So please try to remember that. And remember, when you're having a bad day, don't be too hard on yourself. Everybody does it, even the ETs. It's much, much easier and better to be kind to yourself and other people around you and forgiving of yourself and other people around you. So remember that. We're not gods. We're not gurus. Some of us are very powerful beings, but that still does not make us rulers over you. Nobody is or should be a ruler over you, and never, ever ascribe or assume perfection in any being, because it's just not possible. In an infinitely moving and expanding universe, perfection can only be attained momentarily, because perfection is a static state. Once perfection is attained, it ceases to exist. Remember that. There's no such thing as perfection. Instead, we must always strive to do the best we can and be just slightly better or more better than we were a moment before.
And I wanted, well said, sister, and I wanted to add to it. I know that there's been made out that Galactic Federation of Planets are just another, group of overlords wanting to come in and replace the ones that are currently here. That is not true. Galactic Federation of Planets, the only thing we want for this entire population, the only thing we want for this planet is to see the population live up to its fullest potential and be the sovereign, free-willed, self-governing individual beings that you guys should have been a long time ago and have the potential to be, and and we're here to help give you guys that opportunity, to help guide and mentor, not be here and babysit and take over and, be the next set of rulers. No, you guys need to be free to rule yourselves, to govern yourselves, to travel across the planet freely, to travel into space freely, and to live up to your full potential. That is what the Galactic Federation of Planets wants for this entire planet, this entire population. We want to see the planet fully restored to her full glory. We want the environment restored. We want to see everybody just be free.
No, I'm very glad to be back. I want to let people know my primary mission is the freedom of this planet. It is not the website. It is not my email. It is not my blog. And it is not the radio shows. These I do as a favor to people to make sure that information is available for those who want it or need it. I don't expect it to have 100% penetration into the Terran consciousness, because that's impossible using an English language website that is run with very small funds. I do make it available to people so that they can have something to read, something to think about. Share it with those they care about if they wish. It's not a requirement. I'm doing this as a favor. That said, I'm still glad to be back. I'm still glad to be able to take your questions and help out. So, let's hear some questions since we are back on the air and we have a giant pile of them.
Yeah, let's get her done.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for those kind words and clearing the air, and I'm hoping that, including Denise and Grammy and others, we can all move on from here and achieving the goal that we want, and move forward, please. It doesn't help anyone, and we should move forward. Focus on the goal and not look back. Right, and with that, we'll start with some questions. Right. First question. Significant. Do you think the dark has the ability to negatively influence our dream state? Tanaath.
It does happen on occasion. If you have mastery over yourself and are able to achieve a lucid dream state, you can fight this off. Fight it off if you are not able to have a lucid dream state is to practice affirmations before you sleep that support being free and uninfluenced, such as, my dreams will be clear, I will not have nightmares, I will not let negative influence enter into my dreams. And you do this enough with enough energy behind it and it will stick. Yes, there are beings that can influence people's dream states. Doesn't mean that you're destined or doomed to be a helpless victim of their actions, any more than you're doomed to watch CNN for the rest of your life. You can change the channel.
Okay. Question for Drake. Are you allowed to say who or what the ancients are that you have referred to?
Yes, I can to an extent. In the past, I've had a lot of reference to the knowledge of the ancients. This deals directly with ancient knowledge held here a long time ago that was attempted to be stomped out, that was unsuccessful. The entities known as the ancients had been monitoring the planet for quite a long time. They were, to all intent and purposes, far enough out of the loop, in other words, out of contact with what's really going on and how serious things are here on the surface, to be aware of what they might do to help rather than hinder. Their staying out of that was not the greatest assistance. Recently, and I'm not going to say exactly when, we did garner their support Now, be it as it may, and irrespective as to who would or could appreciate that, they have decided to render us what they can in the way of assistance as they are aware in a manner in which it is non-interfering with us. You get that down real good. You get that internalized and think about it. The ancients are alive and well. They're functioning at, I think, top level, as I believe they always have, more so now that they have been reintroduced as to what is really happening and has transpired and what all of us, specifically ET, is about. There are several groupings of entities that make up sort of a small councils of varying import and impact. The ancients are one of these. So look forward in the near future, and I'm not going to say exactly when, to start rubbing elbows with entities such as the ancients. The reason, and the only reason I've got for this show, is to get as much truth out as is possible, as quickly as possible, to as many who has an ear to hear. And that's basically the greater part of what I'm allowed to share. Next.
Right. Should I forget about going on a diet and eat everything I want because of the transition?
I wouldn't. There may be a transition coming up, as we know, that still does not excuse us from taking care of ourselves as best we can. And I say this as another person who struggles with diet and struggles with weight issues. If something should happen and it should be delayed, or things not turn out exactly as anticipated currently, you wouldn't want to be left holding the bag. I give the comparison to living your life in deep cover. If you're living your life in deep cover, if you're in a witness protection program, if you're an undercover agent doing work in another country or something like that, you live according to your cover. Things are expected to turn around or change immediately. Even if you're expecting your relief to knock on the door and say, okay, you can go home tomorrow, you still live every single day as though it was going to continue the way it is, but prepare for the eventuality of change and the certainty of change. So this means it's probably not a great idea to go out and buy the Lamborghini Diablo. It's probably not a great idea to run off and eat all of the cookies you can. It's probably not a great idea to, go mountain climbing without a rope or anything like that, unless you're a trained person who regularly does this. It's not a license to excess or excuse or risk that you wouldn't normally take. You can and you should make change to support a more empowered existence, to support improvements and change in your life. Change begins with you. There's one thing I wanted to read here today. I saw it on Reddit. Yes, I do Reddit. We need not possess great power or fame in order to do great deeds. You are loved. So, even if your body isn't the shape that it should be or that you want it to be, remember that you still matter, you still count. Your deeds still count. Your intent still counts. Do what you can with what you have to make things better now. You don't need to wait for the world to change to start changing yourself and the things around you. I didn't. I could still be sitting at my desk waiting for everything to happen. Instead, I chose to act. This is how I chose to act. How you choose to act will be in a way that is appropriate for you and that takes advantage of your skills, your knowledge, your expertise, and the things you enjoy. Don't wait Don't use this as an excuse for inactivity. Don't use this as an excuse for nihilism. Get out there and start making your life better. It's up to you to do so, not up to aliens or magic from outer space or anything else to improve your life. You have to start taking matters into your hands. So what have we got next?
Right. Next question. I thought all the greys here were gone. Maybe I got that wrong from Tanaath, and I have a feeling we are being set up for a false flag to cover any more ongoing investigations into the NSA. Is this right?
Okay, I had some audio breakup, so I'm going to answer the first question. The Greys appear to still be able to make isolated visits or I guess you can call what they did with Grammy J and Denise an attack. We have not been able to achieve 100% removal or coverage thereof. It's difficult to do that when you're dealing with something the size of a planet and you're dealing with things on the scale of space and you're dealing with all the various stargates and other tech that's been buried and forgotten, sometimes by us as well. So, yes, there are still incidents with Greys, and we're doing our best to try to cut down and or eliminate these entirely. What was the second question? You kind of broke up during that. I think it was about the NSA.
Yeah, it was more of a statement, really. So I have a feeling we are being set up for a false flag to cover any more ongoing investigations into the NSA.
I'm sure they'll try. There's been a couple of false flags that we knew were going on, including one that Sunfire remote viewed, and we were able to mostly stop. So, it's not like we have to sit here and be helpless victims of things that they do.
Okay. Tanaath stated Hank's family had been killed. Can she explain the context of this, please?
I did answer parts of this. They were attacked. The planet they were on was attacked by Greys, and I'm not too sure which attack was this. Was this the Sunfire Nose? Was this the 9/11 destruction?
Yeah, it was the 9/11.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it was during the 9/11 distraction. Basically, what happened was, in order to get 9/11 down here, the Greys attacked several systems belonging to the Galactic Federation of Planets, including those. One of those systems was Tau Ceti. One outlying planet in Tau Ceti was destroyed. It wasn't a heavily populated planet. There were about 10,000 people living there full time. Most of those people were killed, including Hank's family, two of whom were involved in the defense of that planet, and one who was a civilian living on the surface. All three of his lost family members have been brought back to life by the Silver Legion, and the civilian family member has also joined the military operation as well, mostly as an administrative role, and she's a wonderful, wonderful administrator. Mm. So yeah, that's what happened with Hank's family. He's very happy to have his family, and they're happy to be back.
Good.
And we're definitely happy to have all of them back. They're all very wonderful, beautiful people inside and out.
Question for Drake. What exactly are comets?
Well, comets are a variety of things. First level of comet is what we're familiar with. It's more or less a dust ball of ice in varying configurations that is sensitive to energy, and I do not necessarily mean heat, because that's not the role that necessarily is played by the energies involved. As a comet would approach a star, irrespective of as if it's our sun or another, it emits a tail. This is primarily particulate and energy that's being swept off of the comet itself. The influx or movement of energies has been tied to tied through the celestial event into the horoscope, and has been looked upon for ages as an indicator, predicator, that's predictions, and a, quote, sign. People that have done tracking know what reading the sign means. Depending on what critter you're tracking depends on the sign, and the manner in which you read it, and what you're doing. The same thing holds true when these things are put together to track an event according to timings and other energy incidents that go along with it. One of the things that has been associated with comets is that world events are directly and usually adversely affected, meaning that good people die and things of this nature. These are not necessarily how these things work in any way, shape, or form. That primarily is an assumption. Now, what everybody would like to do is to offer that, ooh, you see a comet, they know something funky is going to happen. Okay, the weatherman says it's going to snow 14 feet. Most people would laugh at that. But when he says we got at least 2 feet coming from this big blizzard, and it could be 4, people are going, now what do? I clean off the grocery shelves. They go nuts. They, get the four-wheel drive out, put chains on everything. Batten down the hatches. Get ready for Armageddon. It's coming. The end of the world. Oh, my. 2 feet of snow. Well, in cases where the general populace listening to this particular weatherman stating this prediction have decided that, I don't think so. You get maybe 3-4 inches, maybe 10 or something, let's say. Yeah, got to give the blizzard a little bit in there. And that's basically the sum total of the same thing that comets portend in terms of predictions of future events or current events and interactions within structures that are already existent here. The prophecy, prediction of the future, and all these other things has been to a large extent discounted for varying reasons. One is that it was intentionally put together to be discounted. That's where you get a lot of this stuff. Now, that's just like the fear porn sites that, ooh, we're going to have a giant solar flare in September and it's going to wipe the planet out. What do? Oh, let's all put bunkers up. There's a problem with that. A solar flare of the magnitude that's being called for penetrates the planet up to 2 miles deep. I don't know backyard bunkers that go that deep. I mean, you're talking a serious staircase. The other part of this is that most of the things, and this includes comets and all these other influences that people look at, have been altered. The conditions by which they have their effects has been changed. I have done some of it. I've been partly involved in a lot of it. The real fun starts when you understand that the technologies available to ET are far superior to ours. They can alter and deflect these things that would normally be adverse. A good example, what happened on 2012? The sky didn't fall. Great Earth changes didn't happen. The world did not come to an end. That was a beginning point. If anybody decided to really learn how to read and understood Mayan calendarics, they would see this. That's what they said. It was simply a new beginning. Well, you have within this, from about that date forward, what's known to all the religious people and a lot of people otherwise, a state of grace, during which the individuals involved, this includes Silver Legion, ETs, me, this includes our military, this includes the militias, this includes just about everybody. The case in point, Is a birth of a child to be painful? No, that is not the way it was designed. Even during or considering physical birth, it was not designed to be painful. Something added that to it. And that something is not exactly kosher. That something is not exactly have the best intentions for the woman having the child involved, obviously. So, where does that leave us? Okay. Giving birth to a higher dimension from a lower dimension is going to happen. Ain't nothing can stop it. It's part of the cosmic clock. It's going to happen. The idea is to get as much information out as possible about that. One of the main things is to make sure that there's enough information out that people are no longer afraid of the dark, that unknown factor, that thingamabob that might live in the bottom of the closet under the shoes. You have to get past the childish application of emotion of fear, paranoia, oh my, ooh-ee, and all those. And when that is accomplished to an extent, it makes it easier to give birth. The pain lessens considerably. It makes it easier for a person to go from 3 to 4D. So these are the things that have to be taken into consideration and the reason for the things that are being done. Comets, I think it's a nice display up in the sky, and that's about it. Next.
Tanaath, you have stated in previous shows that excluding wheat from one's diet could help with thyroid problems, chronic fatigue, and more ailments. Is this true for all types of grains or just plain wheat?
Well, there's wheat itself is more damaging than other grains simply because it's had more modifications made to this. And now they'll be quick to tell you that there's no genetic modifications made to wheat, and that's true. No, instead what they did was subject wheat embryos to all kinds of toxic chemicals, radiation, and other very uncontrolled circumstances in order to induce spontaneous mutations. Now, those spontaneous mutations have included a tripling of the number of chromosomes in wheat, and a lot more gluten in the wheat kernel than was previously present in the old heritage grains, and a number of other negative consequences in terms of the starches and lectins that are present in most grains, and even more present and more damaging in wheat in particular. I would also probably recommend that due to the genetic modification, you should avoid soy and corn unless you can get it from non-GMO sources. There is a secondary problem that's occurring when one eats grains, and that is due to the excessive starch load. If you don't make grains the focus of your diet, then you're unlikely to have a lot of problems because of this. But as most of us are being cautioned to eat 6 to 10 servings of grain a day and cut down everything else but vegetables to a bare minimum, chances are you're eating a grain-based diet. The starch and the carbohydrate load will result in problems such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, kidney damage, and all the negative toxic consequences thereof, high blood sugar, weight gain due to high blood sugar and hyperinsulinemia, because you gain weight when your body uses insulin to shuttle sugar into the liver, turn it into fat, and shuttle it into your fat cells because it can't deal with the high blood sugar that you're generating eating 60 to 70% carbohydrates in your diet. If you're very, very active, you can burn off all these carbohydrates, but generally if you're eating more than about 150 grams of carbohydrate a day, it's more than the average sedentary person can burn off. You're not going to make up the difference with an hour at the gym. Sorry. So, yes, wheat is especially toxic, but all grains can have a problematic carbohydrate load, especially for people who are sensitive. How do you know you're sensitive? Well, are you fat? I'm fat. I'm sensitive. If you are and you gain more than about 10 or 15 pounds over what you consider to be your ideal, chances are you're sensitive. If you are sensitive, I would recommend reducing your grain intake considerably, focusing on fresh meat, especially if you can find some that's humanely raised, fresh vegetables, and non-starchy sources of vegetable food.
Right. Next question. I have a question about the Arcturians. I was under the impression that they are little blue people. But are they actually more human than Hobbit?
There's a couple different planets in the Arcturus system. One is populated by fairly tall humans. The other one is populated by short, blue variants of the Greys. They're not considered friendly. The latter, that is.
Okay. Last question before the break. Are there any free ways to access the Akashic records, and will this help in learning about my past lives and my race of origin?
You've never ever had to pay to utilize the Akashic records. Anybody who's trying to make you pay money or saying that you have to pay, sorry, it ain't true. Well, good news, it ain't true. Anybody trying to tell you that they're going to do this on your behalf, this is something that is much, much better to do on your own. As to how to access them, it really helps if you learn how to astral project, because most of the time the Akashic records must be accessed via astral projection or other altered states of consciousness. The best way to do that, I don't know. I use different methods myself, so can't really give advice there. Maybe Drake or Sunfire has an idea.
I'm going to pass that one on to Drake, because I bet most likely that it's probably in his book.
One of the two main problems here. One, we've been lied to since the beginning. Many of the records that everybody would like to say is gospel, absolute truth and all this, ain't so. Look at George Bush's military record. I mean, that was altered, obviously. I thought kind of wantonly, actually, to suit a political agenda. You're getting into an iffy kind of area. If there is, and I'm going to put these ifs in here because they need to be put in, if there is time travel and you can adjust your location and time, you can go back and play games with whatever you felt like you wanted to play with. Just that simple. No ifs, ands, or buts. Within that kind of an area, you also have have the serious problem that you're going to find that that the entities involved have left no stone unturned in terms of trying to bend things to their agenda. Taking an incident and making it different than what it really is. This is common practice in politics today. Anybody ain't noticed that, you need to wake up. And I mean that quite seriously, and I'm not pulling punches. You really seriously need to wake up. The situation is that these things will be set correctly because the records do exist, unadulterated, as they were supposed to have been put out ages ago. So, what we would attempt to do would be to tell people to be patient. Some of the things I access now may not be anywhere near the truth. Some more so than others. Some contain more truth than others do. But there's still that doubt. There's still that question. Until we are in a position to make sure things are rectified correctly, and by that I mean the false past, the lies, etc., done away with, then and only then will we know that we are dealing with the truth. Then you can really seriously and honestly study. until that time, I've studied enough to find that in some cases, and I was really shocked at this, certain people have gone around and changed glyphs. Hieroglyphs are not something that's easy to change and make it look right. So there's you got to be a real serious scientist to be able to do that stuff. And so you get a real serious scientist, that maybe will give you an idea as to how in depth the falsehoods go. And yeah, go ahead and read them if you want. Go ahead and look into it, but be aware that you got some falsies in there, and you're not going to be able to recognize them easily. So, go from there. Next.
Is using meditation on the symbol for the Andromedans and directing it through our sun to the Mare Rash sun in the Andromeda constellation a way of contacting the Andromedan Council?
It'll likely get their attention. They'll notice that for sure. Remember, intent is what matters. Even if you just look up at the night sky and project your thoughts outward and say, "Hi, I'm down here. Anybody up there? Anyone friendly around?" Yeah, sometimes you'll get a flyby. I've gotten a few this way.
Right, question for Drake. A bit long-winded, this one. Drake, now take the virtual field, the so-called zero-point field, where quantum fluctuations take place, that I am told that is infinite in density. Now here's the conundrum. If the virtual field enwraps the whole of space-time, how then can a series of dimensions be projected from within this virtual field, when in doing so it contradicts the idea of infinite density? Am I making sense here? Hello?
I think Drake's either muted himself or...
Yeah, you do, and I was standing on the mute button. What you have to understand is that the basic concepts of physics as we are familiar with them are limited in some of the very fundamental ways. That had been put into place about the same time as we started having problems here quite a few ago. What happened was that the ideal that a squared circle couldn't exist in terms of the sacred geometry is incorrect. The ideal that one thing or item precludes another's existence or application or impact is therefore, in the same light, also incorrect. What you have to understand is that you are dealing, and everyone on the planet right now is dealing with two-dimensional physics and two-dimensional mathematics. I have started to design what's known as three-dimensional mathematics. Its basis number, similar to pi dealing with a circle, is 1.0.1. Yes, this was noted some time back by bad guys who would have you worship deities, etc. However, I decided to look at this in terms of application, and it is the only formulation that fits, meaning that in a decimal figure, you have a numeric value on one side, a decimal designating fractals on the other. The differential between two-dimensional mathematics and physics and three-dimensional is very simple. Difficult to comprehend, but it works the same basic way all the time. And that is that there are no fractality on the other side of the decimal. The decimal in and of itself is an operator. It tells you division of on one side or the other. And due to that fact, you have to understand that as an operational, and this is the neat part, a totally undefinable operational, you're dealing with infinity. When and only when you can mathematically and through sacred geometry define infinity will you get the answer to what you're looking for. There is exception. There are bendings. Usually it's either a direct exception rather than a breaking of a known rule, because the breaking of a known rule means that that rule is not a rule. Rule being an absolute. So infinity is an absolute according to its measurable size. When you are able to measure the size of an infinity, then you can either join in with it and or partake of it and or be a participant within it, or you can step outside of it and either create a larger or smaller infinity of your own making. This deals with reality technology, time and space continuum, and relativities that people are not aware of. And I'm going to stop there because the rest of the science gets really convoluted. Next.
Right. Tanaath mentioned a planet. Was it Maldek that had been destroyed? Again, can you explain the context? Who destroyed it? What is its name? And who were the race that lived there?
I think I can handle this one. The planet was Maldek. The ones that destroyed the planet was a ship commander from the Galactic Federation of Planets. No, I will not say who. It was a calculation mistake. Basically, they thought the crust of the planet where they were making a strike against an enemy base was thicker than it was at the time. And so when they calculated the strength of the beam, the decimal point ended up in the wrong place. The ones that were on Maldek were the Maldekians. They were all evil, negative, bad beings. And basically we were trying to, from what I remember of what I've been told regarding this, is they were trying to clear out one of the last strongholds of the beings that were on the planet and miscalculated. It was a big oops. Next.
Right. Long story short, many years ago, my mother pointed to the Seven Sisters cluster of stars, that's what she called them, and said, I'm told we come from there. Celeano, Celeano. She said this 3 times over. Is there a planet called Celeano in the Pleiades?
Can you spell that out for me, please?
It was spelled... In the Pleiades, it was spelled Celeano.
Does anybody have an answer for that?
I still can't make out how it's spelled. You have the ability to text it to me, Thomas,
yes.
if you could, please.
Yeah, we'll go on to the next question, and I'll send you it. Right, could you explain, this is Tanaath or Sunfire, could you explain your understanding of the higher self?
Well, the higher self is not a separate individual, first off. Your higher self is you, the part of you that exists in a higher dimension. Hence why it's called a higher self. Depending on your awareness, perceptions, and connection down here in the third, in meat space, so to speak, you may or may not have awareness of everything that you do. Think of it this way. Right now, The consciousness that is in the body down here in the third dimension is like a hand inside of a glove. The glove is the body. You are not your body. You are your soul, your consciousness. Just like your hand in the glove has a limited perspective or a little limited perception of the rest of the body, what you have right now, unless you've done a lot of work or are naturally one of these people who's very highly connected with the rest of themselves, you're able to perceive this and it feels like there's nothing else. This is deliberate. Part of what was done was an attempt to sever you from your connection or your feeling and your perception of the rest of your body, so to speak. Not the one down here, but the one that exists in higher dimensions. Your higher self is the rest of you, so to speak. The stuff that you're not necessarily able to perceive, but still very much exists and still is often very active. Anything more?
No, that's it. Others have stated that the soul can split into multiple incarnations. Do they all share the same higher self?
Yes, there are beings who incarnate themselves multiple times quite simultaneously. I'm not one of these beings, so I don't exactly know how they manage it. I know that in this case, that perception of separation or individuality is necessary in order to maintain this. When those beings finally come together, I'm not too sure what happens. In fact, I'm very curious to see what some of these multiple incarnation types, what their experiences are like when they reunify, if they reunify. There's been incidents of people who have divided themselves into multiple individuals on a permanent basis. In that case, they cease to be the original individual and become separate beings. They can merge again if they choose this, but often they don't.
Yeah, I think they like being individual beings.
Right. Next question. How do we know the ascension is not a hoax that is part of the Cabal plan to lead us where they want us to go?
The ascension is a natural evolution of the planet and the planetary population. That's why we are so adamant about whoever wants to ascend to the fourth dimension needs to be on the surface, not under the surface, not out in space, on the surface of the planet. And, you know, that's how you can tell. And then also you can look at all the different Earth changes that are going on. There's, I believe the lady's name is Susan Joy Renison, and several others out there that are actually studying and releasing information on the science and physics of the transition. So this isn't just some, plot cooked up by the Cabal or, a bunch of ETs. It's a natural evolution for the planet.
As to ultimately how we're going to know, I guess we'll know when it happens. If it doesn't happen, then I guess I'll look like the biggest idiot on the face of the planet. It's a risk I'm willing to take.
Okay. Tanaath, you have mentioned that you use conscious bilocation to work with the Silver Legion. Could you explain what you mean?
I've explained this a couple times, but since we still don't have all our shows back up and all the transcripts back up, I'll talk about it again. When I consciously bilocate, I am simultaneously aware both of my third-dimensional body and my place in it here and the third-dimensional space around me, and I'm simultaneously aware of my higher-dimensional body and the space around it, and sometimes more than one instance of my higher-dimensional body and the space around it. It becomes a little bit of a mental juggling act to be aware of these multiple locations and places and situations at the same time. All the same, the more I do it, the better I get at it. I've gotten to the point where I can split myself about 2 or 3 times not counting the one down here, which is kind of a permanent emplacement, at least until this incarnation is over. Pardon me, I'm still getting over a cough that I had earlier in the month, or last month, so I mute myself for that. I don't know exactly if I can explain the mechanics behind it, but it's a matter of projecting my awareness while maintaining it where it is already. And like I said, I can usually manage this about 2 or 3 splits before I start losing my focus on one or all of them, at which point I'm told I tend to stare or fall asleep, at least up there, which apparently it's considered pretty humorous to the people around me. I do get razzed a bit for it, but I'm getting better.
Right.
There's,
So the person
there's
asking
some
about Sunfire, do you want
Sorry,
Go ahead.
to the person who asked the question before about Ciolano, it is a star in the constellation Taurus and a member of the Pleiades open cluster. So that answers that question.
As for whether we came from there, not necessarily. As we've stated before, there were about 23 to 25 different planetary origins that contributed to the Terran project. Some of us probably have genes that come from Solano. Some of us don't. We can't say that we came from any one origin. It's not the case. It's simply not the case. The theme of Terra is plurality, multiplicity, and mixing, which is why I really, really laugh at all of these people who get so up in arms about supposedly different races mixing. That was the whole point.
Yeah, that was the whole experiment. What happens when all these races come together and mix?
Good.
They wanted to figure it out. They wanted to see what happened.
I'm sure we'll soon find out. Is it true that Orgon burns and kills reptilians and their hybrids?
I don't know if Orgon kills reptilians and their hybrids. It probably makes them uncomfortable, I'd think.
You know, I can tell you it does not kill or burn reptilians or hybrids, but yeah, it makes them extremely uncomfortable. Tanaath's right about that. It also repels grays, and basically any of the bad guys or bad ETs, you can repel them with Orgon, but it's not going to kill any of them.
Next question. I have always wondered what happened to Perseus when he crossed over, ever since I heard Alex Collier tell us that this happened. Was Perseus born as a baby into 6D? If so, do you know the name he goes by, and what is he doing now?
Sunfire, you want to field this one?
As far as I understand it, that would be what would happen. Since he transitioned into the 6th dimension, he would have been born as a baby and grown up from there. I don't know what his name is. So.
Yeah, he may have kept the same name. Some beings do. Others will choose a different name for whatever species they are at the time.
Okay. This is more of a statement with a question at the end. It is very difficult to understand how a good group of beings could stand by and watch this bad group of Cabal gain more ground every single day in their fever to spread hatred, kill people, and take over the planet. How long will this be allowed to continue?
Okay, first of all, you're making a giant assumption that the negatives are indeed gaining ground as opposed to losing ground. No, they're losing ground. Unfortunately, they're just trying to make it look like they're gaining ground to instill a sense of hopelessness and despair in you so that you think that there is no point in fighting any of this because you're not going to be able to. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to manifest your fears, your doubts, your terrors, and they want you to retreat into apathy and despair so that you don't do anything, so that you don't take action. No, they're not gaining ground. We've been doing stuff to shut them down. It's not something that we can do quickly and easily, which is why we haven't seen complete victory yet. That's another myth that often goes around, that more advanced tech and different powers, then victory should be a simple matter. Well, no, it is not always the tech edge or the powers that decide it, but the strategy. Strategy is still important, and we need a strategy that maintains your mental connections to yourselves and your mental sovereignty, not something that just gets by on a technicality or a technical issue while leaving intact your own mental enslavement. You have to work on that part too. It's your mind, it's your life. It behooves you to free yourself from mental slavery. We're doing what we can to make sure that the environment is conducive to that as opposed to repressive to that. And that takes time and care.
Yes. Question for Drake. Is the story about the two F-16s approaching Washington and being shot down true or horse hockey?
Run that one by again. I want to be sure I really heard what it was said.
Is the story about the two F-16s that approached Washington, D.C. and were shot down true or horse hockey?
Well, it depends on where they were shot down at and the reports of it. If people have to ask me, then that would probably put it in a simple realm of fun and games. Whether it's really true, fully horse hockey or not is just about as questionable as the question itself. Next.
Okay. Question for Sunfire. Is it true that the Andromeda and Milky Way galaxy will collide in 5 billion years? If so, what does the Federation plan to do about this?
It's entirely possible that it's recombining, but, it's 5 billion years, or probably quite a little bit more beyond that. I think right now our focus is on liberating Terra and then liberating the 50-plus other planets that need to be liberated. Something that is 5 to 10 billion years from now will probably be more, looked at and studied and, will take more into consideration on a higher priority in probably about 5 to 10 billion years when, there's not other things to be done first.
Yes, we do have some immediate concerns that need to be addressed. Yes, motion of the celestial objects speaking, this galaxy will eventually merge with the Andromeda galaxy, and it will be one galaxy. This happens all the time. Over the centillions of years that this universe has been in existence, galaxies have come together and split apart, stars started up, they've gone through their life cycles, they've died, planets have accreted and just gotten novaed out of existence. It's nothing new. It's nothing to be scared of. The movement of galaxies into each other actually does not occasion any catastrophe. At that point, we will probably be well able technologically to deal with any gravitic or energetic effects that might be negative from this situation. So it's really nothing to get worried about.
Right, next question. Do 4D females have periods like in 3D that cause cramps, etc.?
No, I've never met anyone who menstruated in the fourth dimension or higher. It might be that there are some in some societies that I just haven't met, but menstruation and the suffering that goes with it is unheard of as far as I've seen.
What I know about it is something that is basically a result of being 3D, for one, and then also a result of the genetic and other forms of interference that have been propagated here on the planet by the reptoids and the other opportunists that have come around and messed with the population at one point or another.
Right. Next
I know
question.
it had to do with rendering fertility into a involuntary event rather than a voluntary event.
Okay. Does your allies have a huge ship with a portal gate that retracts from the ship and opens the gate to allow ships to travel from another point in space?
I don't know if it's specifically that kind of configuration, but we do have a battlesphere, which is a biosphere, but a military biosphere that has portaling tech within it that allows ships to travel through the portal within. So basically, they fly into a huge bay, fly into the portal, and come out in space somewhere else. If that's similar to what you're thinking of.
Okay. Next is a multiple question. What do you know about the Jinn, the Shadow People, the Watchers, the Nephilim, or the Scuttlers?
Okay, now those labels are never really made very, very clear who or what they're referring to, with the exception of the Shadow People. The Shadow People are fairly well known in that they appear to be the outline of shadowy people that often hang around staring at you while you sleep. All we know about them is that they're negative beings, and they don't exactly hold up to a dedicated attack. So we usually aren't too troubled with them. The Nephilim, I believe what was referred to as the Nephilim in the Bible was actually a reference to the reptilians, but it could have been a reference to other beings that were around at the time. Can we go through? Jinn, again, seems to be part of the same group of references to reptilians and other negative beings. Now, who were the others that were listed? That was a big, long list.
The Watchers and the Scuttlers.
Okay, the Scuttlers I don't think I've ever heard of. They may be... I used to see a variant of the shadow beings that was more like shadow bugs or shadow crustaceans running around. They never harmed me. They would run from me when I woke up, and I'd try to grab onto them telekinetically, and usually succeeded, and they didn't like that. I never got a sense of threat or anything from them, so I don't know if that's the Scuttlers or not. The Watchers. Now, I've used that term, or I've heard that term used for basically a group of positives that monitor things. However, I have to say, if that's the case, they're not doing a very good job of it.
Yes. Right. I'm fascinated by Nassim Harriman. Do any of you agree with his information?
Can you type that out for me so that I can understand what you just said?
Nassim, Nassim, Harriman, Haremein.
Okay, I am not familiar with his work.
I'm familiar with a little. Big physicist is trying to introduce the ET from a physics and science kind of point of view. I'm familiar with, I would say, some of his work. I don't know if I agree with or support all of it, but I do definitely, from what I've seen of it, I think he's doing a really good job in trying to introduce the physics aspects of and the science aspects of the ETs and their involvement here on Terra. And I know he was one of the ones that pointed out the connection between a Mayan artifact and the video footage last year that was caught by NASA of the isosceles triangle-shaped, what they labeled as a coronal hole, which was actually a stargate being caught wide open. And he did a presentation on that. He did a presentation on a few things, and from, like I said, from what I saw of that information and a few other things that I think he's on the right trail, and I support him in what he's trying to do.
Yes, I actually saw him at Awake and Aware in Irvine, California 2 years ago, and he made a very complex subject very easy to understand for the layperson. I thought he was rather good at that. Right, Tanaath, did you find out about the transition before you incarnated in your current body or in this lifetime, and how did you find out?
Well, I found out about it consciously in this lifetime, and I have to say that I don't know if led is the right term, but definitely there was a great deal of synchronicity and a feeling of urgency that I should find out more about this information and get to know as much as I could. That's what happened in my conscious 3D existence. Prior to that, I do distinctly remember being approached and asked to come here to help. I was made to forget through the veil of forgetfulness, just about everyone else here. I was made to forget exactly what I had come to do, and I operated with the realization that I would remember and get the information I needed when the time came. And sure enough, that seems to be what has happened. So I'm going to assume that I did know about the transition when I started, but that I would have forgot this, just like just about everyone else forgot this, and had to be triggered awake or triggered into remembering, just like a lot of other people. And now I do take that as a matter of fact. My own personal experiences of myself, while I can't prove them to anyone else, they're vivid enough that I have no doubt that I exist. It would be a pretty big trick to be able to pull that off. So, what can I say there?
Okay. Can animals be our combat partners and stay side by side with their owners when fighting against negative entities?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They do. Alicorns, or unipegs in particular, are known for choosing people and then going into battle with them. They're very steadfast and staunch companions. Not all animals, just like not all people, are interested in the warrior lifestyle, but enough of them are. Yes, there are, the trope of the battle bear or the combat pet that you see in so many animes, video games, comic books. That exists for a reason. It's based on a real phenomenon. And yes, this is the conscious, free-willed choice of the animal involved. Nobody ever makes them do that. They have the right to defend themselves just as we do.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is when you're trying to convince a unipeg or alicorn to stay out of it.
Yeah, that doesn't go very well.
Yeah, they stand there with their horn pointed at your neck, and you're like, okay, come on, go ahead.
Time to go.
If you've ever been stared down by a horse, think about being stared down by a unipeg. It's about 100 times stronger at least.
Okay. Question for Drake. Zora from Hollow Earth Network stated that Earth will expand 5% in diameter. Is this going to happen, and would we have to evacuate?
No, not really. You can have an expansion up to about 11% or so before it really gets funky. As far as the paradigm of the Hollow Earth itself, there is variety of takes on the actuality and reality of what's really there to begin with. In terms of offering possibilities, I would suggest anybody who is interested in possibilities take a close look at quantum mechanics and work up simple old wood or something nice, or drywall, or something of that nature, and you'll find, very interestingly, that you will end up with a load of charts, and it can be as simple as paper. It doesn't matter. What I would suggest you do is take the charts themselves and use the quantum physics parameters as a numerical noting, and you can run that on cross-line paper, where you get one line is 1, the space in between is half, or however you want to do it. Don't matter. And you'll find that there is a harmonic convergence at one point or another between wood and drywall. And I'm going to suggest, now what do you do? Next.
Okay. Question to Tanaath and Sunfire. Can you all share some details of Phoenix and nine-tailed fox, or variations of it in different ancient civilizations?
The kitsune? The nine-tailed fox, or kitsune, is mostly I've mostly seen it in Japanese lore. It's often considered to be, I guess you could call it the challenger, taunter, or pest of the more stoic dragon, who is a fairly no-nonsense character in Japanese mythology. Kitsune are known to be pranksters, and the kitsune I've met definitely are pranksters, and some of them do try to live up to being a dragon pest, but my particular species of dragon has no problems with kitsune. What was the phoenix? There's several different kinds or species of phoenixes, just like there's several different species of dragons, several different species of humans, you name it. If there is a template of any kind of being that exists, there's going to be multiple versions of that template, or multiple expressions of that template. That seems to be how life works. Phoenixes are typically associated with avians or birds, and they're often associated with fire and with rebirth as well. So I'm not too sure what else the question wants to know about that.
Yes, that's all it said, really. There wasn't much to it.
Up the mythology of the phoenix or the firebird in different in different cultures might give you some idea of some of the variations that exist. And not all of them are reborn, not all of them burn, but the notion of thunderbirds fall within, I guess you could say, the phoenix template. As do many of the old Russian and old Zoroastrian representations of birds.
Right, next question. Right. How can we be sure when changes begin that we are not going onto Galactic Federation of Light ships? Will we be able to recognize friendlies?
I would advise you not to go off with anyone you don't know, don't trust, and aren't very familiar with. So you're going to want to take the time to establish a trust relationship with individuals in the first place. Some incarnates, in fact, many incarnates do have a clause in their soul contract that permits for, I guess you could call it a preparatory visit to space, which would include full briefing and restoration of the conscious memories so that they can get back down on Earth and go about their business. Again, even if you were one of these beings, you don't want to step on the ship of somebody you do not know and trust implicitly. I have a very small list of people who I do know. I know what they look like. I know what they sound like. I might not be able to see them here, but I know what they look like. If they were to come down in the third dimension, I'd be able to identify them. And if somebody else came and said, "Hey, Taff, Admiral Mander sent me, I would say, bull crap, unless it's someone I know and trust. So in that case, follow your heart, follow your instincts. Don't get so excited at the chance to go into space that you get into the wrong person's car and, go off in a little white van full of candy and puppies. We don't want that. We want you to be safe. If there's any doubt, you are much better off erring on the side of caution. If it's really them, the chance will come again, and the chance will come for them to prove themselves for you. You're not going to miss out on anything on a permanent basis if you say, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. You're perfectly okay to do stuff like that. It's your safety. That takes priority over everything.
Yeah, this is why, I've been echoing Alex Collier's insistence, and I believe even Tolk was saying the same thing, that there's a need to develop your instincts, your intuition, your gut feelings, and really get to know yourself and your instincts and how to tell the difference between, a negative situation and a positive situation. You guys can do this even going into a supermarket, a mall, any, place out in public. It's like one of those things where you're walking down a street and that abandoned house that's all boarded up. You walk past it and you're like, oh my God, that's so creepy. You get a negative feeling. That gives you an idea of what even, like negative ETs when they come down and they, that they're part of like the Galactic Federation. Like, they're not going to feel positive. You know how to tell the difference between negative and positive beings.
They may be beautiful. They may be beautiful. They may be smiling. They may be full of a lot of really nice-sounding words, but they might still give off that creeper vibe. Yeah. And I know just about everybody has been at a social event where they've met somebody who was a friend of somebody of theirs and introduced as a friend, but still got this really, really icky or apprehensive feeling being around that person. The creeper feeling. I know most of us have probably at some time in our life experienced that feeling. Well, if you get anything like that, trust your gut. Don't go along with anyone who makes you feel even slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. Right, question for Drake. What does the Cabal think is going to happen? Why are they building and supplying all the underground bases to live in? What do they know that we don't?
Well, first of all, that's a Sunday question. Well, first of all, that's a Sunday question. But secondly, there's a couple of problems with that, and that is that they cannot and are not doing what you're talking about. They don't have the material or the money to do so, for starters. Secondly, don't believe everything you hear on these fear porn sites. Pretty soon we'll have Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds coming after us or something, or the frogs are going to eat us, or giant killer tomatoes. And, there's limitations on things. And really seriously think it through. If the Cabal was winning, and this is a good sign for everybody to think about, all right, and this also pertains to this show, and that's why I'm stipulating this. If these turkeys was winning, why is it that they ain't rounding us up? Why is it they have not initiated any of the things that they got supposedly into law? Why is it that we haven't initiated war against the slap in the face that Obama got from Putin over, giving somebody amnesty? There's way too many easy excuses out there, and they haven't acted on any of them. One of two things. Either it's all BS, couldn't happen anyway, or they're incapable, or, and this is the cool part, this is the juicy one, they're getting their butts kicked so thoroughly and so completely that they don't know which end is up. And they're, hiding and covering up. Like that song says, spent my whole life covering up. Well, think about that. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm safe in my bunker. and then somebody comes along and drops something heavy on it, and it gets a little shorter. Think about that happening on a regular basis. Pretty soon you're going to come out of there, and we're close to doing that to them. So they're scared. Financially, they're holding their breath right now, turning blue and whatnot all over the place because things are about to bust loose. Physically, the general whole of the population of the United States and much of the planet are saying, no. Give you a good example. Egypt and their fun and games. I've seen several of the newsreels, and I want everybody to take note of this. You want to know what's going on? Think about this. How do you cause an armed force to use live ammunition against unarmed people? Very simple. You take one dink with an AK, and he takes a 30-round clip on automatic and sprays the troops. And then he goes right back behind his wall, disappears. And I've seen this, personally seen this. It's on the friggin' videos. Go look at them. Several and not more than one time. The issuance of the ultimatum recently in the last day or so to the Muslim Brotherhood by the Egyptian military authority that, cut the BS. You don't want to even negotiate? Fine. You'd screw up, we're going to kill you. I think that is basically the right to self-defense of something that is greater than some small group who thinks they are in charge and can perpetrate the wanton murder. The blood's on the Brotherhood's hands, not the military. The Brotherhood gave that dude the AK-47 and said empty the clip at him and watch all the people die. Now you understand. Human life to these people doesn't mean diddly squat.
I would also like to interject, and that is the question, what do they know that we don't, is founded on a fairly major assumption, and that is that the cabal actually knows anything at all. I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence that they know as much as they'd like you to think they know.
The
also, they, it seems that going into underground bunkers is gonna keep them safe from the Positives and the Federation and the Silver Legion and the Andromeda Council. Well, you know what the truth is? They got nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Even in underground bunkers and underground bases and all those underground cities, we can still get them. Quantum technology is amazing.
Yeah, I know people who can swim through rock. Swim, like you and I might. A couple of kilometers of rock ain't going to save their butts.
Yeah, well, the fun part was some of the reports I heard where these underground bases have been cleaned out. The only thing they got left is a few chunks of broken furniture. Now, you guys, anybody that wants to really check, you start checking on functionality. When you get to the point where you can do that, then you'll start finding the truth about what we're talking about. These people are done. They know they're done. They would love to be able to do a large amount of damage on the way out. The only problem is we don't let them near the button. They don't get the opportunity to flip the switch unless they get in the control room and the door's locked. So, right now, the oligarchs, and I have communication with a few of these turkeys, they think that they're immune to anything and everything, and nobody's going to change squat, nobody's going to do nothing, etc. Well, that is beginning and has been under heavy change. The people have had enough. You've got people standing up all over the planet. You got some even here. And every effort they've made to start civil war here has failed. They played the race card real hot and heavy on several different occasions. Never let a really good crisis go to waste. And they couldn't even inflate the balloon for the party. So, look at these things relativity. In relativity. Look at the impossibility of, we'd sure like to scare you to death so you do something stupid. Take a look at it that way, then it will start making better sense. Okay?
Yes. Right, last question before the break. do you all think we will see the next Super Bowl?
I don't know. I don't watch football. I'm Canadian and a female and not all that particularly interested in organized sports.
You know, you may see the Super Bowl. You may actually see some ETs running around playing on part of the team as well. Who knows? The future is, the future is an open book.
I propose the first annual Calvin Ball.
There you go. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll have unicorns in the next Olympic equestrian event.
I'm going to suggest that we're going to see the Super Bowl because there's a lot of guys out there who want to sit on the couch, drink beer, and watch the game. And I don't think that's going to change that much between 3 and 4D. I really don't. Yeah, people are going to be busy, but everybody's going to want a break. And what better time to take a break from it all than, some kind of a game? And that's basically one thing that's looked at. Now, here's the other part. A juicy tidbit. They now have an official referee that is female. The ladies are coming, guys. Get used to it. I'm looking forward to this, and they say she's one of the top best they've had in a long time. And I'm looking forward to this. Oh, boy.
Yeah,
that's
as
my
long as long as Madonna doesn't turn up with her ritual stuff, and everyone will be fine.
No comment.
Bitch. Let's just get Drake back. Right. Question. Tantarum said she saw Tolek, Tanaath, and you, I presume that meant Drake, enter an incarnation chamber aboard a biosphere last month. Can you comment?
I did not use an incarnation chamber. I used my own wherewithal. I'd done this before, so I knew how to do it. I skipped the tech because I didn't feel it was necessary. So I'm not sure that Tantarum saw me enter an incarnation chamber or something else, but I know that in my case I definitely did not use an incarnation chamber.
From what I understand, they're actually the times there for time travel purposes, not incarnating purposes. And generally speaking, technology is not used for the purpose of incarnation. Again, if somebody tries to ask you to go into a chamber, don't go into the chamber. They're not necessary for anything of that sort. For incarnating, for transitioning to the fourth dimension, none of that.
Yep, and use your discernment. Don't go anywhere or get into any chambers or vehicles of people you don't know and don't trust implicitly.
Yes, exactly. What is the difference between the Andromedan Council and the Galactic Federation of Planets?
The Andromeda Council is a multi-galaxy, mostly spread between the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way Galaxy, civilian organization, things somewhere along the lines of the United Nations, but without the corruption of the cabal. The Galactic Federation of Planets is more, being only in the Milky Way Galaxy, it's more, they're more with the military, the General Trade Organization, and that kind of thing for various planets, interplanetary trade, military organization, and I don't mean like a military overlord kind of thing. They help coordinate the various, independent planetary race militaries, and when there's an operation where there's multiple planets working together, they help coordinate things, and basically just day-to-day operations on the various member planets.
It's a governance structure that is accepted by those who choose to opt in or take part. Not a rulership or a leadership, but more it is a federation. a group of planets and systems that have mutually decided to create and abide by rules for themselves and combine their efforts and act together in concert.
Right. Next question.
The rules are very minimal. It's the only rules and laws that really exist are those that are like universal laws, creational laws, cosmic laws, and very few beyond that.
Okay. Upon entering a biosphere, what will be our first experience, and will there be protocols we will have to follow?
I think that's probably a question that would be good to ask Tolek.
Yeah.
Okay. It is believed reptilians feed off fear. Could you elaborate? How do they perceive it, ingest it, and how does it make them feel?
When you have very strong emotions, you are generating energy. Fear, pain, terror, negative emotions back the sufficient amount of energy can be used as a food source to beings that can devour energy. I've been told that reptilians find this to be a very intoxicating, heady substance, much like people indulging in stuff like cocaine or other very, very intoxicating drugs here on Earth. Never having experienced it myself and not having any desire to do so, I don't know firsthand, but that's what I've been told it's like.
Okay. Will Terrans be able to feed off emotions after the transition?
You won't need to feed off of emotions after transition. There's absolutely no need to ever feed off emotions. Generally, the only things that do so are either beings that clean up excess energy or negatives that are doing it to further themselves.
Is there a reason why the planet Destiny has the same name as the ship of the series Stargate?
Destiny? I'm not aware of a planet that name. Huh?
That's what it says. Is there
Destiny.
a reason why the planet Destiny has the same name as the ship of the series in Stargate?
I'm not aware of a planet named Destiny.
I thought they
they're
got mixed
they're
up
probably
with
talking
Harmony.
about Harmony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Right, okay. This person has been hearing a high-pitched frequency in their ears for the last 2 years. I don't have a hearing loss all the time, but in my head, should I be concerned, and are others having the same problem?
Ear tones are fairly common now. I don't believe it's any reason for concern.
Okay. Question for Drake and Tanaath. Isn't the Andromeda Council supposed to work together with the Galactic Federation of Planets and the Silver Legion? Why do we hear contradictory information?
Because every group has different perspectives. We do work with them. We may disagree on certain things, as I've said, like timing, for instance, or certain procedures, which procedures are the best or most correct for certain situations. But in general, we agree more than we disagree, and we work together on that basis. It's not necessary for all of us to be 100% in line with one another at all times. If we were, we might as well just be one another.
Yeah. And, and also in instances where there's agreement on specific events that are supposed to happen or be, predicted to happen, is, different methods are used by, the Andromeda Council versus the Galactic Federation of Planets to perceive the highest probabilities of what will happen along the timeline. And the nature of time itself and timelines makes it extremely difficult to accurately predict 100% what events will and won't happen, and what pattern they will happen in, and in what order. And sometimes an event will be perceived to happen in a certain timeline, and then there will be a timeline shift, and that event will happen in that timeline. So things like that, there's going to be this coherency between, the groups in, those kind of instances, just because of the very nature of time itself, and why we are so adamant about not putting any kind of time frames on things, because things change, not only by the minute, but by the hour, by the day, by the week, by the month. One decision made by, one group will, completely affect an entire timeline. It happens.
When timeline predictions are made, they're made for the most likely circumstance or the most likely outcome of the situations as they are at that time. There have been a lot of timeline changes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Okay. For Sunfire, does the Federation have technology that can be used to save the music stored on 3D technological devices, i.e. CDs, computer drives and vinyl, to 4D devices before the shift?
Oh, don't worry. A lot of the media that we have created here on this planet has already been preserved in some form. I know that the Silver Legion is very fond of video games, and as a result, our video game collection includes every video game ever made on this planet, including some that we had to use time travel to get to. The same thing goes with music. We're holding on to this kind of stuff because we like it.
Yeah, we've got databases that are practically the size of moons that we're using to store things like the music and stuff. And so, there's never we consider that, that it's all pretty much pure crystal. There's no limit to what can be stored. And you run out of space, you just make another one. And all the things like music, art, all the photos, all the stuff the Cabal thinks they're destroying, all the video games, the board games, fashion trends, and the entire history of the planet is being recorded holographically and being stored. So when people want to, they want to go back and they want to see what happened on a specific date, they can, put a small chip in a holographic, one of the holodecks, and access that date, and they can see what happened anywhere all over the planet at any given time, and fully experience it by being there. And so definitely the Federation and all the other allies are working together to preserve everything.
Nice. Question for Drake. Do you still feel that humankind will shift to 4D within the next year, or may it not happen during our lifetime? This question has been asked before, but things are changing, so the time frame may shift too.
Yep, I agree with that. I'll still give the same general destination of time, sometime between fall of this year and spring of next. As that becomes better defined, it could be sooner rather than later, and we'll have to wait and see, just like everybody else. Okay?
Yes.
Barring any major timeline hiccups, yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah.
And even then, delay does not mean fail. Sometimes it's a very, very good thing if there is a delay.
Yes.
I agree.
Question for Tanaath. If channeling is largely dissuaded, can you explain the legitimacy of ancient cultures and their use of scryers and seers? Were they also channeling negative entities?
No, channeling is very, very specific. Channeling, in its purest definition, involves letting another entity into your body and mind, allowing it to take control of your mouth and ears in order to speak and reply or write or whatever. Scryers, seers, and other things aren't necessarily making use of channeling. Oftentimes all they're doing is remote viewing, whether this is assisted remote viewing or unassisted bare-brained remote viewing or what. It's a completely different thing. Channeling is very, very specifically allowing another entity, not yourself, to take control of you. It is a form of voluntary possession.
You know, a lot of the seers and the shamans and all that got their information telepathically through altered mind states and, you know, all that as well. But
it is it's entirely possible to perceive and communicate without permitting another being into your mind or body.
Okay. Tanaath, you mentioned, and also your website mentions, that the Silver Legion is a non-physical organization, and yet there will be recruiting after our transition to 4D. Tolek
because guess what? You'll be in the same context as we are then. Yeah. What's the rest of the question?
Tolek said that we will still be physical in 4D.
You will still have a perception of yourself as having form. You will still have a body, although it won't be a physical 3D body. He's stated this multiple times. It will be a fine matter 4D body.
Right. There's
which acts a little bit different.
Yeah. There's another two parts to this. How will the new recruits be able to work with the other members who are not physical? And from what density will we not have a physical body anymore?
As far as I know, you will always have a form. You will always have what you perceive as a body to interface with the universe around you. There are beings that voluntarily take on a non-formed existence, but this is a choice. It's not something that automatically happens at a certain point. Most beings prefer to have a form. Forms are fun. You can do things with forms, like hug your friends, have sex with your lover, kiss a friend, tumble in the grass and roll down a hill, watch the stars, all kinds of things. You can do wonderful things with a form that you can't do if you're formless. For that reason, most of us choose to have forms. They're also fun to look at. Some of them are very beautiful. Some people enjoy using their form as a type of art, making themselves pleasing to the view of others. You're never going to reach a point where you're going to mandatorily be formless. As for interacting with the Silver Legion, once Terra is in fourth dimension and you're in fourth dimension, you will be able to perceive us, see us, touch us, feel us, and interact with us as fully as you would interact with your table, your chair, your computer, or your best friend, or your dog now. What we have going on this planet now in the third dimension contains an unreality and an artificiality which has been set up to exclude spiritual beings like the members of the Silver Legion, and also, to a large extent, other dimensionals that aren't using technology to arrive on the surface of the Earth in a three-dimensional artificial body. On other 3D planets, we can be touched, we can be perceived, and we can be interacted with. It's Terra that's a special case here.
Right. It was recently reported that the sun's magnetic field is expected to flip in the next 3 to 4 months. What is the significance of this event? Does it affect humans on Earth, and does this have anything to do with ascension?
Yes, it's part of the energetic changes that go on in this system during ascension, during the transition. It's not going to be a cataclysm or anything to be alarmed with. It's something that's normal, natural, and expected, and it's not going to hurt you.
The sun magnetic pole shift about every 11 to 14 years, if I remember correctly. And so,
those are just solar minimum and solar maximum.
I don't know. It happens frequently anyway. I just don't remember the exact time frame. And I've got my brother poking me in the side of the head, going, "It happens more. It happens often enough." One of those solar engineers. Anyway, it's a natural part of the transition, natural process for a star to go through a magnetic pole shift on a regular basis, and like you said, it doesn't indicate any kind of cataclysmic event is going to happen.
Okay. How can individuals stay positive as things just seem to get worse each day? How do we stay positive and uplift others, especially those who are oblivious to what is going on?
Decide that you will. Decide that you're going to, and do it. It's hard. Everybody who does this work goes through times where they struggle with staying positive, because it seems like there's so much to do and so little time and so much to overcome first. But it can be done. Keep yourself focused on the positive things, not the negative. Don't allow yourself to be fooled by the neg porn that's out there that they're trying to shove down your face. Remember that what you see is only a very small fraction of what is actually happening. And even if it looks like there's no progress from your point of view, does not mean that there is no progress at all. This is the illusion that is being pressed upon us so that we remain hopeless. Even when there's massive, massive changes going on, and if you stretch out and look, you'll see it. You'll see these changes going on. But because they're not in your face, we tend to default to the negative and assume that it's not really happening. Don't buy into that. Grounding and centering yourself is a great way to maintain inner peace and calmness, even in the heart of this maelstrom that we're currently living in. Trying to remind yourself that everything has an end, and this too shall end, and we will have our triumph and our freedom again. That is another way to help keep yourself positive. Put it into perspective as much as you can, because it's only at the micro level that things look so hopeless. It's only when you take into account just the information that you have public access to that things look so hopeless. Keep your hope up. There's a reason to hope. There's a reason to keep trying. There's a reason to take your steps to improve your own situation and that of others. And here's another great way to keep yourself uplifted, and that is take whatever action you feel you can in order to make things better. If you are doing something, if you are active, if you are contributing, it is a lot harder to feel negative about what's going on than if you're just sitting there waiting for change to happen. Take matters into your own hands. Get out there. Help somebody out. Help yourself out. Help your friends and family. You don't need to push an ideology. They'll come to understand in their own time, at their own speed when they're ready. But you can try to go out and yourself a point of positivity in your life and the lives of others, and this will help combat the negativity that we're constantly bombarded with.
Also, I wanted to recommend, and it's something that, Tanaath said a little moment ago, is to go out and connect with nature. Go roll in the grass. Go find a mud hole. Go roll in the mud, and then jump in a lake, or go for a hike. I've noticed that a lot of people have really lost their connection with nature. So get out and reconnect with nature, and just spend an hour sitting in a park reading a book, or if you can't get to a park, sit in your front yard and read a book. But make sure that your feet are bare and they're touching like dirt or grass, not cement, but I'm talking about like the actual dirt or grass.
Interact with an animal if you can too.
Yeah, interact with the animals. Go on a trail ride if you can, spend some time around horses. But reconnect with nature.
If you've got dogs or cats, pets are wonderful sources of positivity. There's a dog in my extended family who, I swear, this dog is therapy on 4 legs. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, he'll snuggle right up, give you a big loving sigh, and make these great big eyes at you, and it's hard to stay depressed with that dog around.
I agree. I mean, dogs are very therapeutic. The two dogs that I have, they are total goofballs, and in the mornings and the afternoons when it's finally cooled off, I go out and I watch them, and they play in the front yard, and they run up the tree, and then they run around and they chase each other, and they're like, oh, you're paying attention to me, and then they start doing really funny stuff. And the more I laugh and the more, I just stand there and watch them and kind of interact with them when they come near me, the more they, I want to say show off for me and do funny things and that kind of thing. And it's always a great way to, to raise my vibrations and, to stay in a very positive mindset, or I'll go out and just soak up a little sun. And, that's another way to do it. There's a really cool song that, also helps raise vibrations along with just positive music in general, like really good folk music, like the Celtic music, the Native American music, the Greek music. There's a song, there's a Lowe's commercial song, and it's called My Own Sunshine. It was played on one of our previous episodes. Listen to that every morning. It'll raise your vibrations. It certainly does mine.
Right. Next question. Where are we? I got lost there. Right. This guy is talking about spiritual masters from India, and he mentions a few names that are Sawan Singh, Kirpal Singh, Darshan Singh, and Rajendra Singh, and they teach mankind through science of spirituality. Can you shed some insight on these people?
No, I'm not familiar with their work without having reviewed it, and I don't really have time to review every source that exists, and there's a lot of them. I would say the same thing I always say: look at their message, take what resonates with you. Don't feel obligated to take all of it, the stuff. Don't feel obligated to take anything that doesn't resonate. And another thing, just because it resonates with you doesn't mean it will resonate with everyone else. So while it's definitely okay to go tell people, hey, look this up, there's some wisdom here if you're open to it. If they don't feel the pull, it's not a problem.
Right. Is Earth the only planet that has free will?
No.
No.
I would say right now that we have much more limited free will than currently exists on many other planets, largely because that's been tampered with. Yes, Earth is a special, but it's a special planet because all planets are special.
Yes. Right. I don't know if you trust Cobra's info, but the latest interview states that the resistance forces have only one planet left to liberate. is this the case?
This does not match our intel. To the best of our intel, there are some 50 planets that still remain needing some assistance.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, I don't trust anything that comes out of Cobra's mouth.
Yeah. Just wondering what happens when a person gives up their shell of this lifetime and moves on. At what point are they asked if they want to stay in 4D or go on to do other things?
Well, they decide that for themselves, being asked. It's not a matter of some arbitrary third party or authority that asks or assigns or anything like that. It is all a matter of personal choice and free will and decisions made personally and in private. It's not something somebody else does to you. It's something you do yourself. When somebody passes from this third-dimensional Terran life to the next, it's entirely up to them where they go and what they do from that point. At least this is the case now that the soul traps have been taken away so that nobody can try to force them back into involuntary reincarnation here and mind-wiping here on this earth.
Okay. Tanaath, are you able to talk about diets on other planets?
In general terms, yes. Specific diets of specific people or specific planets, no. I know that there are certain factions in the alternate spirituality community who are very, very adamant that vegetarianism and veganism is the only way to go. That's not the case. That's not true. There are a lot of ways to eat ethically without harming animals, especially with replicators that don't involve veganism and vegetarianism. Optimally, the diet of human beings involves some animal protein and fat and lots of vegetables, not grains, vegetables. You can eat a subsistence or subsistence diet that does not involve animal fat and animal protein. It will keep you alive, but in order to have optimal health, you have to be one of the people who has the genetic, the proper genes enabling you to produce the correct enzymes to be a converter, to be able to convert plant precursors into essential nutrients, which not everybody has. And number two, access to all of the very, very long list of required substances that you have to really go on a wild shopping spree to get as a vegetarian in order to have optimal health. So why am I talking about vegetarian and veganism? Because asking about diet on other planets is usually shorthand for do we have to be vegetarians, or if you're not a vegetarian, you're evil and you're not going to ascend. Sorry, that isn't the case. Then there are other beings that eat other things. There are beings that eat rocks, for instance. I know I've talked about this in the past. My particular species of dragons is lithivoric. Our natural diet consists of rocks. We also don't have a sense of taste in our natural form because when one rock is pretty much the same as another in terms of its nutritional impact on your system and you can't be poisoned orally, it doesn't really, there is no reason to evolve a sense of taste. I have to tell you, being human is pretty wonderful for that. All of a sudden, everything I eat has flavor. It's pretty darn cool. I think I'll keep that because I'm pretty sure that rocks just taste salty most of the time. But if I can have a sense of taste when I'm in a humanoid form, I'm cool with that. Some beings eat plasma. Some beings eat electricity. Some beings eat water. You know, there's many different things with many. You start getting into some of the really interesting forms of life that don't use carbon at all, like methane-based life. And they eat a lot of other things, rocks, minerals, stuff that would be pure poison to us, ammonia. You know, if there's something that's eating it.
Yeah, I mean the Draco can drink Drano mixed with water.
Yeah, they get high off Drano. Or drunk.
Drunk.
Oops. Nasty. When those who choose not to ascend and they stay in the third dimension, will there be animals there with them who still have to be abused and killed like what is happening on this planet now? And if so, why?
No, they'll have replicator sec. Any animals will probably be co-contributors, such as if they want to go very, very agrarian. Some animals may agree to, for instance, pull plows and help cultivate land, but there won't be any need to raise domestic animals for food with replicators fully available. We take the raising of domestic animals for food on this planet to be an unfortunate necessity that will soon no longer exist. There's no guilt or blame ascribed to humanity for eating meat that doesn't come from replicators, because we understand that the technology isn't widely available and for a long period of time did not exist on this planet. We don't punish people for living according to the needs of their bodies. That would be barbaric. All the same, alternatives will become available, and at that point, we fully expect that most people will probably switch to the replicator.
Okay, 15 minutes to go. And question, what do you guys do for romance? Not personally, but in general.
Do you mean like
hook
dating
up?
and...
Yeah, dating, fun
Okay.
parks, restaurants, dancing, clubs. How do you hook up?
A lot of it would look very similar to what we do down here. Some courtships, it depends on the culture and the individuals involved. If, for instance, you're dealing with people like the Androni who are very, tend to be very polygamous or polyamorous, it should be as simple as one of them walking up and saying, "Hey, you're hot, you want to go?" To the point. Or it might be more involved with a lot more wooing. So it really depends on the people involved. There are some people who really, really enjoy the long romance and long courtships. Usually it's a matter of spending time, however you choose to do that, spending time with the person you love or the people you love, doing activities together that you both enjoy, and showing each other things that, you know, introducing each other to things that you like. For instance, I might take somebody I love to one of the planets with where skiing has been introduced and teach them how to ski, because this is something I enjoy. And that way, if they like it, then we have something we can share together. You know, it's the same things as that you do here, just maybe a larger pool of activities to choose from.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. How do people raise their children out there, teach them right from wrong, go to school, and do they do homework like here?
Learning's far more experiential, more a matter of doing and learning directly rather than sitting in a class. Learning right from wrong, most of us tend to come into our latest incarnation or latest life already knowing right from wrong. It's not uncommon to have serious sage wisdom or advice out of the mouths of a child. They don't always choose to remember everything because there's some thrill in learning, but they usually know ethics, and they usually of morality and what will or will not hurt other people, and they act accordingly. In terms of learning, most higher dimensional children, they're children for 100 years or more, depending on the species. So they have time to really focus on things, to experience it. It's not condensed into 12 years or even 20 years or anything like that. It takes place over an extended period of time. In a lot of cases, society is safe enough that you can unleash your child in a pack of other children and they'll run around learning on their own. Nobody's going to come snatch them. They're unlikely to get into any situation that they can't get themselves out of. And they're always within shout range of responsible adults who can get there in an instant if something happens. And they know when they've bit off more than they can chew when they call for help. It's a combination of hands-off, like adult hands-off experiential learning. And when children decide that they want to learn something in particular, they'll ask around to find out who the best person is to learn that from, or the best group is to learn that from. And then the adults in their life can take the opportunity to hook them up with an appropriate teacher or teach it to themselves if they have that capacity. So it's very open-ended.
Yeah, I know Alex Collier mentioned that when he was on the Sarstra biosphere for about 3 months, that he saw the kids being taught, and they would be sitting around in a circle, or in a little group with their teacher or their mentor, and they learned in the park. And they learned out in nature.
Yep, and they ask questions, which learner focused rather than curriculum driven. And I know that there's going to be a lot of teachers who are hearing this and thinking, oh, thank God, I don't have to sit here and push some curriculum I don't even agree with on a bunch of poor kids so that they can pass some state-mandated test. Nope, there's none of that. It's very much learner-focused. And they've got enough time to learn it all. You don't need to worry about, are they going to get in the mandatories? They'll get it.
Yeah, and they're treated like adults. They're not treated like children. The teachers, the mentors, the instructors, those with higher levels of knowledge are revered and respected and looked up to with great awe and honor. In other societies, knowledge is valued, the most highly valued of everything, not the latest fashion, not the latest iPad, not the latest pair of shoes. It's knowledge.
And it's all stuff that they're able to go and confirm for themselves, so they don't need to take anybody's word on it either.
Right.
So you're not going to get away with lying to a kid about the way things are. They can go out and find out for themselves, and they do.
Oh, yeah, and they will know whether, much like any other ET or off-worlder, they're going to know when you're lying to them.
Right, okay.
Telepathy and all that, you can't lie and get away with it.
Right. Bit of an announcement. All at Cosmic Voice would like to send their deepest sympathies to Kevin Peterson, who's a member of Cosmic Voice, who lost his brother to suicide last night. And his question is, what is the overall process for him, and will I see him again?
You'll see him again. Due to the nature of time, when you see him, it will feel like no time has passed. I'm really sorry. My deep, deep condolences. It's a difficult thing. Your brother is probably getting a crash course in reality right now, as in learning what the real truth is, and probably being given the choice to come back and incarnate if he had a mission here, to incarnate and do it over, or if he really can't stomach any more of this planet, to wait until such a time as he could be reunited with you guys, which for him will feel instant.
Right.
But don't worry, he's not lost. He still exists. He still lives somewhere. It's a very hard thing to deal with. I've lost family members myself, and I have to tell you, knowing what I do about the nature of life, it's a lot easier for me, but it's still sad. It's still hard to say goodbye.
Yes. Good luck, Kevin. Right.
I wanted to recommend a book. It's called Signals, and it's a really, really good book. And then there's another one called The Afterlife Connection by Dr. Jane Greer. Both books are really good, and they're really helpful, I think, in situations like this. And also there's a really great song you might want to listen to. It's called You Can Still Be Free by Savage Garden. And, it's got a really good message in the lyrics. It's very positive.
Okay. 6 minutes left. Do you believe that viruses are contagious, or do you understand that viruses are created by the body to cleanse specific toxins, and that contagion is an illusion created by the cabal to create a fear of nature and enforce vaccines?
Wow, that sounds like based on a bunch of assumptions. We have observed viruses and contagion in other places. We do understand these phenomena to be fact. We also understand them to be artificial, as in I have never seen a virus evolve naturally. Once created, they can change. But I have never seen a virus spontaneously evolve. It has always been created by someone or something for some reason. So I'll put it at that.
Right, okay, we have 5 minutes left. I'd like to thank Tanaath and Sunfire. Really enjoyed that show. And I'd like to hand it over to Drake to summarise the show and end it, please.
Okay, I'll do my best. You never know what I might come up with. Yeah, I play some games in terms of hillbilly humor and other things. And you got to understand that the corny humors, the simple fun of giving a young child a funny look and they giggle at you, the very basis for love, understanding, caring, learning how you can express yourself to another individual so that they smile. Not necessarily that you're the butt of the joke, but the situation is so ridiculous that, certain things become obvious. Everybody's been in the military. Oh, yeah. You hurry around the grocery, get another, put it all in the cart, bring it up, and wait. Come on now, hurry up and wait. There are a few people out there think they can cook that belong in the military. From what I heard about some of the food that I have had the unfortunate opportunity to sample. The things that we've covered tonight deal with a pretty broad spectrum. One of the main things that I would like to put to rest, and hopefully it will be allowed to remain at rest, is the situation of our transition to Cosmic Voice from Universal Voice. I didn't like the situation. I don't think that it's above board, and I feel that even so, we're still able to put a lot of information out. People need to know this stuff. The more people that get used to it, the better off we're going to be. Then again, you always got the old saying, get her done. And with that, that's my close.
Right, thanks for that, Drake. Right. Sunfire, you got anything else to say?
Oh, I covered it well. Just, remember to take your power back and stand in your power and try to make as many decisions from a position of love, and stand in the love. Don't let the fear take over.
Okay. I'd like
It's
to remind.
positive.
Yeah. And I second that. I'd like to remind listeners that we have an email now for questions, and it's cosmicvoiceradio@gmail.com. That's cosmicvoiceradio@gmail.com. And we're still working on trying to get a chat room going. Hopefully that will be ready soon. And on that note, I'm going to say good night, and we'll see you again on Sunday. Bye for now.
Take care, everyone.